Guys, thank you so much for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. Keep those questions and suggestions coming. I get to them as soon as I can. Now, earlier this week, we went over the 14 delays that are in the Tone Master Pro. Today, we're going to go over the 14 different reverbs. All right, let's check out the Tone Master Pro model guide and see what it has to say. The first entry under Effects Reverb is the 63 Spring Reverb. Classic early 60s standalone Fender reverb effect. Controls, mixer. Adjusts amount of reverb effect blended with the dry signal. Dwell. Adjusts signal level into the reverb circuit, affecting length of reverb decay. Tone. Adjusts the amount of treble frequencies heard in the reverb effect. Spillover switch. Select to continue hearing reverb trail after effect has been bypassed. Have you ever seen one of those old Fender reverb units? You'd plug your guitar into it and then connect it to your amp. Okay guys, just like I did for the delay tests, I made a number of reverb test presets, and we are on reverb test 1, and we're going to test the 63 Spring Reverb. Now this is what it sounds like at default settings. Turn up that dwell some more, turn up that mix a little bit, maybe back off the tone a little bit. '63 Spring Reverb Convolution. Convolution reverb effect based on the 63 Spring Reverb unit. Controls, mixer, dwell, tone, spillover switch. Note that only one convolution reverb, standalone or within a combo amp, can be used at a time. Convolution reverbs use a lot of processing power, but they sure do sound good. Because they use a lot of power, you'll find a lot of grayed out options if you try to add another amp or more effects. The 63 reverb units often have a more lush and swirly tone compared to the reverb circuitry you'll find in the blackface era combos of the day. Okay, now here's the 63 Spring Reverb Convolution at default settings. Quite a bit different from the regular version. Convolution is a lot, I guess I would say like it's a lot richer. But let's turn down the mix just a hair. Turn down the dwell just a little bit and see how this sounds. It's like you can hear those springs just a-cranking. 65 Spring Reverb. Fender reverb effect built into the classic mid-60s Fender amps. Controls, reverb, tone, and spillover switch. Yeah, the 65 Spring Reverb sounds way different than the 63. Okay, this is the 65 Spring Reverb that came built into the blackface amps. Now let's turn up that tone just a little bit. Let's bring up that reverb to 5. '65 Spring Reverb Convolution. Convolution reverb effect based on the long tank Spring Reverb used in the black panel Fender amps of the mid-60s. Controls, reverb, and spillover switch. And once again, note that only one convolution reverb, standalone or within a combo amp, can be used at a time. Now here's the 65 Spring Reverb Convolution. Let's turn it up just a little bit. See what that does to it. Large hall reverb. Strong, bright reverb simulating the size of a major performance hall or other large, cavernous space. Controls. Mix. Pre-delay. Pre-delay adjusts the amount of time between dry signal and the onset of early reflections of the reverb trail. Decay. Adjusts the reverb trail length. Damping. Adjusts the amount of high frequency cut in the reverb feedback. Diffuse. Adjust buildup of echo density and reverb reflections. Hall size. Adjust size of hall reverb reflections. High EQ. Adjust high frequencies of the reverb reflections. Low EQ. Adjust low frequencies of the reverb reflections. Mod depth. Adjust modulation depth of the reverb trail. Dispersion switch. Adjust amount of delay applied to low frequencies in the reverb trail. And the spillover switch. You can find many real-world pedals with hall reverb algorithms, such as the TC Electronic Hall of Fame and the JHS 3 Series Hall Reverb pedal. Here's the large hall reverb at default settings. Small hall reverb simulates the kind of bright reverb often heard in a hall the size of a movie theater. Controls: mix, pre-delay, decay, damping, diffuse, hall size, high EQ, low EQ, mod depth, dispersion switch, and spillover switch. This pedal is exactly the same as the large hall reverb, except for using a movie theater-sized algorithm as opposed to the major performance hall algorithm. And here's the small hall reverb. Large plate reverb. The reverb type heard on countless recordings based on the classic and pool table sized EMT 140. Controls: mix, decay, diffuse, high damp, high tone, low tone, balance, and spillover switch. Plate reverb is a type of reverb effect that traditionally uses a large metal plate to create a spacious, bright, and distinctive sound. Of course, there are many pedals that have a plate reverb algorithm, such as the Cattle and Bread Talisman Classic Plate Reverb pedal and the Boss RV6 Digital Reverb. The large plate reverb has become my favorite reverb in the Tone Master Pro. And here's the large plate reverb. And if I crank up that mix a little bit and lengthen out the decay a little bit, let's see what that sounds like. Large room reverb. Warm sounding reverb heard in larger rooms such as nightclubs. Controls, mix, pre-delay, decay, damping, diffuse, room size, high EQ, low EQ, dispersion switch, and spillover switch. You can find room reverb on some real world pedals too, like the Fender Marine Layer reverb pedal. Here's the large room reverb at default settings. Let's turn up the mix just a little bit and turn up the pre-delay just a hair. Modulated large hall reverb. This effect builds on Fender's large hall reverb by adding lush modulation. High and low frequency cut controls have also been added to further enhance the creative possibilities. Controls, level, decay, dwell, diffuse, rate, depth, high cut, low cut, and spillover switch. Now let's check out the modulated large hall reverb at default settings. Let me turn up that level a little bit more just so you can hear it emphasized just a little bit better. Modulated small hall reverb. This effect builds on Fender's small hall reverb by adding lush modulation. High and low frequency cut controls have also been added to further enhance the creative possibilities. Controls, level, decay, dwell, diffuse, rate, depth, high cut, low cut, and spillover switch. Here's the modulated small hall reverb at default settings. Cloud Reverb. Ideal for ambient pads and swells, Cloud Reverb features huge soundscape reflections with pitch modulation for heavenly sonic bliss. Controls: mix, tone, decay, diffuse, high damp, low damp, rate, depth, and spillover switch. A real-world example of this pedal is the Strymon Cloudburst Ambient Reverb pedal. The Cloud Reverb at default settings. Celestial Reverb. This lush, atmospheric reverb with double pitch shifting creates a spacious and dreamy sound perfect for adding texture or creating an ambient soundtrack. Controls: mix, decay, pitch 1. Adjust pitch value in cents for first pitch shifter in the feedback network. Pitch 2. Adjust pitch value in cents for second pitch shifter in the feedback network. Pitch decay. Adjust feedback regeneration of both pitch shifters. High cut, blend, and spillover switch. A real-world example of this pedal might be the Astronomer V2 Celestial Reverb pedal from Matthews Effects. The Celestial Reverb at default settings. Nebula Reverb. An immense sounding reverb effect that adds incredible sonic depth and complexity, and creates a haunting and distinctive sound unlike anything in this universe. Controls: mix, size. Adjust size of each delay within the reverb and the decay length. Ranges from tiny room to full-on galaxy. Diffuse, pitch, pitch decay, mod, high cut, low cut, and spillover switch. You could look at the Walrus Audio Fathom reverb effect as a possible real-world version. Here's the Nebula Reverb at default settings. Now let's turn the mix up a little bit. And the last one, the Shimmer Reverb. Sonically radiant combination of reverb and 2-octave pitch shift. Controls mix, decay, damping, diffuse, feedback, high-pass filter, and spillover switch. You can find a good number of real-world reverb pedals with a shimmer option, such as the Strymon Blue Sky, the Earthquake Devices Astral Destiny Reverb pedal, the TC Electronic Fluorescence Shimmer Reverb pedal, and many more. And we're wrapping it up with the Shimmer Reverb. Let's turn up that mix. And that's it, guys, the 14 reverbs in the Tone Master Pro. Wow, guys, that was another long one. But we covered 28 pedals this week, 14 delay pedals and 14 reverb pedals. That's a lot of territory. And just like with the delay pedals, there are a lot of other questions that we could have delved into, like for instance, how do you set up a gated reverb like Phil Collins used to use back in the 80s? How do you set reverb just right so that it doesn't become a muddy mess in the mix? So many other great questions like that we could have got into. But there's only so much time to devote to a video, right? I mean, this one's already pushing a half an hour. So I'd say that you should just basically consider this as a basic primer for the reverb options that we have. I do hope that you got something from it. Let me know if I helped you out or if you have any other suggestions that need to be looked at. I'm always glad to do what I can. Now, I'll have all new content next Wednesday, guys. You do not want to miss that. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. All right, have an absolutely fantastic weekend. Spring is here, and I will see you guys next week.